Welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Tennessee Athletic Director Danny White is not very happy right now. Rightfully so. I don't know. I'll let you guys decide. So what is Danny White upset about? Well, this came out over the weekend. On3 tweets out news. Tennessee and Nebraska have canceled their upcoming football series in 2026 and 2027 per ESPN. Now, I thought this game had a little bit of added fire to it, right? Because you got Coach Eckler going back home, going back to Nebraska, wanted to be closer to his family. I think that would have made a little bit of a storyline going into this Tennessee-Nebraska game. But also, you look at some of our fans, man. A lot of our fans like to travel, like to go to a road games. I know the trip to Oregon was fun for a lot of people. The trip to Texas A&M, just seeing different venues. I think a lot of people wanted to see this game on the road against Nebraska. Again, it was a home and home 2026, 2027, but it has been canceled, and it's kind of funny. You go over here and take a look at the tweet because this reads as if this was a mutual decision that Tennessee and Nebraska have agreed to cancel their upcoming series. So you can see the comments here. Tennessee leaving in the first quarter again. Tennessee scared of Nebraska and Patrick Mahomes Jr. Tennessee is frightened of Big Ten teams. Tennessee running from bad Big Ten teams now. Is that what is happening? Well, no, the truth actually comes out. Nebraska, in fact, has pulled out of this game. I'm going to go through the article here from On3, and then we're going to talk about why Danny White is so upset. A lot of good quotes from him that we'll come back to here in just a second. But the article says the upcoming Tennessee-Nebraska home and home series set for 26-27 seasons has been canceled, according to ESPN insider Pete Thamel. The series, which is set to begin with the Cornhuskers hosting the Volunteers in 2026 in Lincoln, before a 2027 return date in Knoxville, was canceled at Nebraska's request, according to Thamel. The report cited the Huskers' desire for 8 home games in 2027 during planned renovations to the Memorial Stadium. Pete Thamel put out the tweet, and then Tennessee Athletic Director, he goes and quote tweets, makes it clear. This is a one-sided deal here. The tweet from Danny White reads, correction, Tennessee is not canceling this series. He says, we are very disappointed that they didn't want to play these games, especially this close to 2026. So why is Danny White mad? You know, because we've been in this situation on the other side before. 2022, Tennessee was supposed to be playing against Army. They canceled that game and end up playing against Akron. Now, I know there was a lot of pushback on that, a lot of people that were upset with that. One of the reasons, I was reading an article from the Knox News Sentinel, kind of doing some research on this thing. Here's the quote from that article, said the Army game would have coincided with honoring Congressional Medal of Honor recipients inside Robert Neyland Stadium. Neyland, the legendary Tennessee coach, was a West Point graduate and an Army general who served in both World Wars. Neyland's maxims are pillars of the UT program. So, you know, I kind of get that. That would have been a neat thing, but they replaced it with Akron. And then you remember 2023, we were supposed to go on the road against BYU, and instead we end up playing Virginia in Nashville. Now, was that a business move? You know, Danny White, when he came in, it was talked about how he was a businessman. He was an innovator. He was a fundraiser. Tennessee paid $2 million for pulling out of that game against BYU. But guess what? In the end, Tennessee ultimately came out ahead financially. Here's the quote from Danny White on why they chose to cancel that game with BYU. He says, pivoting to play a marquee non-conference opponent in Nashville made sense for multiple reasons. He says, this is a more accessible game for our fan base. I expect that we will have a much larger contingent of fans in Nashville than we would have been able to travel to Utah. He goes on to say, our fans also have heard me talk about the importance of finding new revenue to grow our operating budget, and playing Virginia at Nissan Stadium is an opportunity for a net positive revenue game. So you go back to the reason why they canceled that BYU game. Well, we came out in the positive financially. Let's go back to the article here. It says this is the second time the first ever regular season football series between the Huskers and Volunteers has been altered following the decision to move the dates of the original series from 2016-17 to 2026-27 in order to accommodate a scheduling change from Tennessee in 2013. Oregon ultimately replaced the Vols on Nebraska's schedule at that time. The Cornhuskers and Volunteers have previously played each other 3 times, the last coming in the 2016 Music City Bowl when Tennessee beat Nebraska 38-24. And that's all worth noting because this series was first supposed to happen in 2016 and 2017, got pushed to 26-27. We're going to come back to that when we talk about why Danny White is so upset. Before we do that, I need you guys to do me that YouTube stuff, man. Smash that thumbs up down here below the video. It helps the channel, and I would appreciate it. If it's your first time here, welcome to the Talkin VAWLS Network, where we don't pretend to be insiders or experts or media. What we are is exactly what you guys are. This channel is for the fans, by the fans. If you like it, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. You won't miss out when we go live or when we drop a video. Going to be live later tonight, 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Every single Sunday, we hang out live right here on the Talkin VAWLS Network. Yes, we'll be playing EA Sports College Football. You have an opportunity to come on and go head-to-head with me, or you can just hang out in the chat, and we will talk all things Tennessee football. But let's go see why Danny White is so upset. We're going to go look at an article from VolQuest. This is not behind a paywall, so I got no problem sharing it with you and kind of talking our way through this. Hubs puts out the article, Tennessee schedule scrambling after Nebraska opts out of the series. Says Danny White finds himself in a place with his football program that he doesn't want to be, looking for a game in the 2026-27 season. We're going to go down and go straight to the quotes here. Danny White says, it's extremely disappointing. This series has been under contract for so long. We had been planning on playing it. For it to get canceled this short notice, we are extremely disappointed. I think that is where some of the frustration is coming from with Danny White. Is you got such a small window and so many teams out there, schedules are booked up. So are they going to be able to actually do a home and home? That's what they want to do, a home and home series. But it sounds like, and we'll get into it in this article, but it sounds like a neutral site is probably going to be more of a realistic opportunity. Maybe a neutral site in 26 with one opponent, and then a neutral site in 27 with a different opponent. But let's go and take a look. It says the original contract, which was drafted in 2006, states to buy out, if you buy out, it's $1 million. So basically Tennessee is getting paid $1 million. It's $500,000 per game. And again, we go back 2006. That was almost 20 years ago. So here's what Danny White had to say about that. The buyout implications need to be much steeper. This is such an old contract. It was postponed multiple times. If it had been postponed when I was here, I would have asked for an increase in the buyout to postpone it. So again, Danny White, known for being a businessman, being an innovator, being good with money, being good financially, being a fundraiser, talking about the budget and buying out of the BYU game. Why? Because we came out better financially. So when it's the good old boys club and you got Philip Fulmer and you got all these other guys stepping in as athletic directors, they're not making the right moves. So this contract got postponed. Danny White says, I would have changed the buyout number. Why? Because this is happening 20 years later. Goes on to say, I don't know if the history, if we were requesting to push it back or if Nebraska was, the buyout terms are reflective of a contract that's 20 years old. They are not steep enough to dissuade this kind of decision-making from our opponent. Says, I think people are willing to play us. The pageantry of our home game atmosphere is attractive to other schools. Our fans coming to their campus is attractive. It's more about finding the right dates and brands that make sense for us. We were able to get a home and home with Washington. I think that's going to be awesome for later this decade, but that's kind of how far out you need to be. We're looking at 5 to 8 years down the road where we want to be for a home and home standpoint and strength of schedule. The 8 versus 9 games in the league has some implications on that, but I think we know we want to play at least one Power 5 opponent, so I don't think that's held us back. We haven't been working on 26-27 because we had Nebraska, and we have all our slots filled through 2030. Right now, you really can't pull an audible this late in the game. The result of late cancellation might mean Tennessee is back on the market for neutral site games in 2026 and 27, which is not the preference. Tennessee moved a road game at BYU to play Virginia, play in Nashville against Virginia in 23. In 24, Tennessee played NC State and Charlotte, because the SEC office forced them to cancel a scheduled home game with Oklahoma because the Sooners were coming to the league. Now, 2025, going to open up again in Atlanta against Syracuse in a deal made by former athletic director Philip Fulmer. Here's another quote from White. We will make the most of it. If we are playing a neutral site game back in Nashville, Charlotte, or Atlanta, I think it will be a great experience for our fans and our players. We are fortunate to have really good partners in those cities that are within driving distance. Not saying it's a bad experience. It will be great if that's what we are. I know we will have some fans disappointed if we lose a home game in Neyland. What are your thoughts on that? You know, if we're going to this neutral site for 26, 27, losing a home game in Neyland Stadium as a season ticket holder, what does it do to the economy locally, right? You're putting that money into Nashville or Charlotte or Atlanta or wherever the case may be instead of pumping it right back into Knoxville, Tennessee. But it sounds like Danny White is not happy. Is it rightfully so? Jump in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. Are you disappointed in losing this matchup against Nebraska? We'll see what Danny White gets done. What does it get replaced with in 2026? But let's talk about it in the comment section. As always, smash that thumbs up on the way out the door. You can go check out the official Talking Vols merchandise at bonfire.com/store/Talking Vols. Also, if you want to support the channel, think about hitting that join button right down below. You can do that for as little as $1 a month, and we appreciate your support. I hope you'll be back right here tonight, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Talking Vols Live. Come hang out. But that is going to do it. This is the Talking Vols Network. My name is Boogie Bentley. Go Big Orange.